Welcome, fragile little creature, to the very first episode of the Skelly Mini Marathon. 2 full weeks of true crime to warm your bones, followed by 2 weeks of weirdos I've met. Lucky you. Tonight's story begins in a quiet Delaware parking lot. Just after midnight, a tired man, an empty road, and one stranger running straight toward him. And trust me, from the moment he rolled down that window, everything started to go wrong. After midnight on June 22nd, 1991, the quiet little town of Harrington, Delaware was asleep. Streetlights humming, parking lots empty. The kind of silence that makes you fragile creatures think you're safe. Charles Holden had just finished a long shift and pulled into a fast food place near his house. Nothing unusual. Just a tired man grabbing a late-night bite before heading home. He stepped back into his truck, turned the engine on, and for a moment everything felt perfectly normal. But normal never lasts. Because as he was about to pull out of the lot, a man suddenly came sprinting toward him, waving, shouting, desperate to be noticed. Charles froze as the man ran right up to his truck window, breathing hard, eyes wide. He claimed his sister was having a baby and he needed a ride to the hospital 20 minutes away. A perfect little emergency, wrapped in a lie Charles could already feel in his bones. It was late. He didn't know this man. Every instinct screamed no. So Charles told him no. The stranger's face dropped. He nodded, turned, and walked away. And as Charles watched him go, guilt whispered louder than instinct. Ah, yes, classic human behavior, ignoring the alarm bells because you don't want to seem rude. So he called the man back. A decision he would spend the rest of his life regretting. The stranger climbed into the seat, quiet, tense, and carrying the kind of energy that makes my bones itch. Charles pulled onto the road, driving him a few miles in the direction he'd asked for. But the car felt heavier now, quieter, wrong. You humans call it a bad feeling. I call it foreshadowing. After 3 miles, Charles eased the truck onto the shoulder. "This is as far as I'm going," he said. The stranger's expression hardened instantly. His body went rigid. His hand dove into his pocket, fingers twitching like he was reaching for something sharp. Then he snapped. "Give me your keys, your wallet, or I'll kill you." And in that moment, every instinct Charles had ignored came right back. Charles didn't wait to see what weapon the stranger was reaching for. He shut off the engine, tore out the keys, and sprinted into the dark before the man could move. Far ahead, a convenience store glowed in the darkness, his only hope. But halfway there, he risked a glance back. The stranger had jumped out of the truck too, and he was sprinting after Charles. Fast, too fast. A screwdriver clenched in his hand, raised like a promise. Charles realized he wouldn't make it, so he did the only thing he could. He stopped, turned, raised his hands, pretending to surrender. Okay, I'll take you wherever you want, just don't kill me." The stranger slowed, smiling, satisfied, and he poked Charles in the back with the screwdriver, herding him toward the truck like prey. When they reached the truck, the stranger ordered Charles to get in and wait. A terrible command, but also the crack in the door Charles needed. He slid into the driver's seat, heart pounding loud enough to shake the mirrors. The stranger circled toward the passenger side, and the moment his hand left Charles' back, Charles struck. Engine on, foot down, gravel exploding behind him. He shot forward before the stranger could even grab the door handle. In the rearview mirror, Charles saw the man chasing after him, screwdriver raised, screaming into the night. Then the stranger stopped, turned, and calmly walked away. For a moment, Charles thought he was finally safe. Charles kept driving, hands shaking, adrenaline burning through him. Calling the police crossed his mind, but he didn't. He felt like it was his fault, because he'd been the one who let a stranger into his truck. You humans love blaming yourselves for surviving, and Charles was no different. What terrified him most wasn't the attack itself, it was the location. He ditched the stranger barely a block from his own home. If he drove back now, the man might recognize the truck, might follow him to his house. So he stayed outside town for nearly an hour, circling empty roads until he felt safe. Then he turned onto his street and froze. The stranger was walking right in front of his house. Charles threw the truck into reverse and vanished back into the night. This time, survival finally outweighed guilt. He pulled into a payphone and called 911, voice shaking as he told the dispatcher everything. Minutes later, an officer arrived and agreed to escort him home. Together, they drove back to Charles' property, and the stranger was gone. No footprints, no damage, no sign he'd been there at all. Charles exhaled, relieved, but not enough. Before the officer left, Charles hesitated, then asked if they could check on his mother, Dorothy. She lived just behind him, 70 years old, alone, and far too close to where the stranger had disappeared. The officer left Charles' driveway and walked through the bushes toward Dorothy's house. A simple welfare check, nothing more. At least that's what everyone hoped. But the moment he stepped into her yard, hope died. The back window was shattered. The door hung slightly open, swaying in the warm night air. He drew his weapon and slipped inside. The house was silent, too silent, no TV, no footsteps, no voice calling back. You humans think silence means peace. It doesn't. It means something is waiting. The officer cleared the first floor. Nothing. Then he climbed the stairs and saw it. Blood smeared across the landing, trailing down the hallway like a gruesome breadcrumb trail. He followed it to a bedroom. Inside, sprawled across the bed, was Dorothy, 70 years old, defenseless, stabbed to death, and the weapon. The same screwdriver the stranger had chased Charles with. The nightmare Charles had escaped had found someone else. And let me just say it plainly. For all his screaming, threatening, screwdriver-waving bravado, this attacker wasn't a monster. He was a coward, a weak little parasite. Because honestly, who attacks a sweet old lady? That's not terrifying, that's pathetic. And this pathetic human has a name, Gilbert Cannon. No grand backstory, no criminal mastermind. Just a drifting nobody looking for trouble and a quick score. When detectives questioned him, Gilbert didn't spin some tragic childhood tale or claim he lost control. No, he admitted it. Cold, flat, empty. He'd seen Charles getting into his truck earlier and thought, if I can get into that guy's truck, I can rob him. That was it. That's simple. That's stupid. And after Charles escaped, Gilbert wandered the neighborhood looking for a place to sleep. The house he chose? Dorothy's. He broke in, saw her coming down the stairs, attacked her because he thought she might identify him. So let's be clear, this wasn't fate, or a plan, or some twisted vendetta. It was a chain reaction set off by a coward with a screwdriver and a night full of terrible coincidences. Gilbert Cannon eventually pled guilty to Dorothy's murder. No excuses, no redemption arc, just a lifetime in prison where even the walls probably judge him. And we love that. Charles, meanwhile, was left with a weight no sentence could lift. He'd escaped death, only to learn that the monster he outran had turned towards someone he loved. And that night became a reminder that survival isn't always victory, sometimes it's a trade. So tell me, you fragile creatures, and what would you have done? Run, fight, or try bargaining with a coward holding a screwdriver? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see how long you think you'd last out there. And if this story made your bones rattle, hit like, subscribe, and keep your doors locked. I'll be waiting in the next nightmare. Try not to die before then.